National power utility ZESCO. Now this comes after Zambia battled to service its debt with the Asian economic powerhouse. Meanwhile, the country has turned to the International Monetary Fund to fund its rising debt levels. And to unpack all of this, we joined in studio by His Excellency's Zambia's High Commissioner to South Africa, Emmanuel Mwamba. Your Excellency, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, and good evening to your audience. Thank you very much.
Perhaps the big issue is that China is set to take over power utility ZESCO. Well, Zambia has one of the longest relationships with China, dating back to 5 months after the country attained independence in 1964. But it's safe to say that Zambia is now used as a case study to see, or rather to gauge, what can go wrong if a country allows China unfettered and uncontrolled access to its resources. Indulge us, if you can, Your Excellency, the extent of China's presence in Zambia.
Well, first of all, we should immediately dismiss the allegation that there are intentions to take over our power utility company, ZESCO. Those reports are unfounded, they are not true. They were first reported in a newspaper called Africa Confidential, and somehow they've gained credency, even when government has stated that this is not true. This is totally a lie. Zambia's debt to China is only 30%. Our debt levels are about $15 billion. This includes foreign debt, which is $9.3 billion, and about $5.1 billion in domestic debt. Zambia is not under in any way debt stressed. We are not in a debt crisis. Remember, our GDP is in excess of, in 2018, $27.5 billion. So our borrowing thresholds has not arrived at a point where you can say there's a crisis. In relation to China, there is no takeover of either ZESCO or ZMBC, our public broadcaster like SABC, or Kenneth Kaunda International Airport. These reports are just malicious. Remember, the debt between Zambia and South Africa is between Zambia and China is bilateral. So it's not in a way where you secure your state assets to a company or to a country. These are bilateral debts. So there is no foundation to that. And I agree with you. Our relationship with China date back to independence. Just a few months after we became independent, the UDI was declared in 1965. The UDI was a unilateral declaration of independence by Ian Smith in Zimbabwe. Our seaport was only through Zimbabwe to Durban and through Mozambique. And remember, these were colonial states then. And we had a shutdown. We are a country that is landlocked, and we couldn't export, we couldn't import, and China came in handy. We had such a crisis that we were airlifting both copper and petroleum products to Europe through Nairobi, airlifting copper, airlifting into our country petroleum products. And it took 10 years. China helped Zambia build the famous Tanzania-Zambia Railway, which spans up to 2,000 kilometers. They also helped us build the pipeline, Tazama, between the two nations, Tanzania and Zambia. Again, another 2,000 kilometers. So our relationship are cordial. And
just to interrupt you there, Your Excellency, what are the terms and conditions that when Zambia approached China, or is it the other way around? What are the terms and conditions? I mean, it only makes sense that China can just negotiate terms and conditions which are beneficial to the Chinese people. And it's obvious to mention that maybe Zambia, since it was in a desperate position at that particular point in time, they ended up acceding to whatever China has been proposing.
First of all, China at that stage, 40 years ago, was not a giant that it is. It's now the second largest economy in the world. It was not at that stage. And Chinese loans are concessional and mostly grants in nature. They are not predatory like we've seen, for example, from Western states or Western entities. Take, for example, the last FOCAC meeting that has just happened, where all African heads of state were in China, except for Eswatini. You're aware that Eswatini doesn't have a relationship with China, it has with Taiwan. The relationship spans from the year 2000. The 18 years that the FOCAC relationship, the Forum China and Africa Relations Cooperation, FOCAC, has brought about 6,500 kilometers of road in Africa, 6,200 of rail in Africa.
Before we get to that, I mean, every negotiation process involves a give and take. Whatever you're receiving from China, you're definitely giving out something. What is it that you gave?
Let's take,
what
for
did
example,
you put up as collateral?
the 60 billion. Let's break it down. The $60 billion that was announced at the FOCAC meeting in China. $20 billion goes to credit lines. There's no money involved. There's no dishing out of money. You are importing and then they finance it. Their credit lines up to $20 billion. The $15 billion involves loans and grants. The rest
and what
are
does
just
the country
support.
put up as collateral then?
There's no collateral. Most of these debts are bilateral. But there is a narrative that is taking foothold that China is out to get your copper mines, is out to get your forests, is out to get your state assets. That has not happened to Zambia. No such agreement has been signed by Zambia or by any entity where we have put our assets as collateral. None of that has happened.
Now, Zambia is scaling back on some of the major infrastructure projects. It is, by all means, to cut down on debt and, of course, also as a means to entice the IMF back to the negotiation table. I get the sense that Zambia is in dire straits. So if a country's top diplomat like yourself says there's absolutely no crisis in Zambia, then why then is Zambia going back to the IMF? No,
first it's an economic management issue. You have to align your economy, you have to ensure your inflation rate is low. The economic targets that our country has set for itself, your debt levels has to be low, your debt service should not be so high that it affects your economic and social plans for your health, education, job creation and other things. So those are economic management programs that are run by the Ministry of Finance, and they're doing it very well. Yes, we need the IMF. Yes, we have a Eurobond, about 3 Eurobonds, totaling about $3 billion.
So the IMF is the last resort?
I don't think that the IMF really even does give as huge loans as people are putting it across. But they're a necessary entity for your fiscal management of your economy. And they are working with us, and they're working with us very well. So there were concerns about our debt relations with China. Our Minister of Finance has put out all our debt out there. She has put out a strategy to manage our debt, and she has demonstrated that we are not in distress.
Zambia is now running back to the IMF in order to get a loan to salvage itself from this situation that it's found itself in.
We need China. We need the IMF. We need South Africa. We need everyone. We are a global world. It's not one against the other. The issue to pit one against the other, that is either the IMF or China, that narrative is, I think, based on false foundation. You need all. You are a global community. We will trade with the EU, with South Africa. We will work with the IMF. We will work with China.
Your Excellency, the Zambian Eurobonds have performed the worst this year, the absolute worst. And the government is now battling to convince some of the investors that it can able to control its debt. I mean, some of the investors have even suggested that you're even struggling to contain the debt that has ballooned to about $9.3 billion. Now, you're telling me that Zambia is not in a crisis?
No, it's not in a debt crisis for the very simple reason. The due debt for the first Eurobond is 4 years away from now. There are measures that government has done: control public expenditure, put up a sinking fund. There are many measures that our government has done to ensure that when the due date comes 4 years from now, it's not due now. Government has never defaulted any single loan. This government has never defaulted, let any loan lie outstanding. Our debt services level are normal and we are paying. However, it's this aggressive, negative, false news, for example, that has what we are discussing, that ZESCO now has been handed over to the Chinese. The information is not true. An investor will panic. An investor will make decision on information that is false. And we have to constantly battle against false news. This is what everyone is now battling with in the advent of social media, in the advent of a global world. You have to battle with these falsities.
The growth of the economy has been quite sluggish in the past year or so. Why is that?
Well, we are a commodity country. Remember, we are mineral based. We export copper mainly, and it was affected. The price of copper was a bit low in the last 2-3 years, but you've seen it's now improved. It's over $6,800, and our economic growth prospects have now gone up from 3.1 to now about 4%. That's a growth rate that we are projecting for the year 2018. Our head of state will be opening Parliament on Friday, and on 28th September, the Minister of Finance will present her budget for the year. And these figures, as demonstrated, will be shown that our economy is going up on a development path.
I'm curious to know about why there are so many uncertainties with regards to the Chinese policy in Africa. I mean, the United States policy is very clear, but then the Chinese are not so clear when it comes to trade and investment in Africa.
I think it's those that were colonizers, those that are guilty of what they did to Africa, that are afraid of any relation with Africa. They want Africa yoked to their policies, to their programs. Every time Africa moves out from that yoke of influence, all of a sudden these narratives emerge. And I think Africa has to decide. I was going back to the FOCAC meeting. Look at what it did. It says you have to align each country's individual programs to their program. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals have to be aligned to the FOCAC program. The AU program for 2063 have to be aligned to the Chinese program. They are not doing anything. They are not imposing anything on Africa, on Zambia. They come with your programs and fit in your programs. It was not like that in the past. The colonizers were brutal. They got our land without authority. They sent us, displaced us, dispossessed us. So their fears could be what they are guilty of, what they did. For us, we are very clear. Our government is very clear on what it intends to achieve from all relations, whether it's the IMF, whether it's Chinese, or whether it's Europe, whether it's South Africa. Our focus is very clear. We know what we want as a country, and we've set our own program. And the international programs fit into our programs, into the regional programs of SADC, of the AU, and of the United Nations.
When China renders aid in the form of infrastructure development, it does not give Zambia all the rights to implement that particular project. It comes with its own material, it comes with its own machinery, it comes with its own skilled labor force. Does that not worry you?
It does worry everyone. It's been the narrative of all development aid. Every time they give you a loan to build a dam, they come with EU experts, and the EU experts come at your offices. It's similar. They have their national interest to promote, and they want to ensure that they are protected in what they are doing.
But then are you not concerned that it bears the hallmarks of a neo-colonialism?
No, let me give you an example of what Zambia has done. For example, for development finance, if, for example, we get a road that is financed by China, we have some plans, for example, that 20% should go to our local suppliers, that there should be a huge local component to that procurement. It doesn't come just as China. They have to buy local products to ensure that as that project is being done and is completed, there'll be skills transfer, there'll be beneficiation to the local economy, there'll be local benefits, and also social corporate responsibility, where the community feels that this investor left something, that this government brought this road to our benefit. So the concerns about China, I'm not dismissing them, they are genuine. But each state in Africa has to ask itself what it wants, what it wishes to achieve. And for us as a country, we have a very, very productive debate about Zambia and China relations, for and against, and it's a very productive debate.
Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. God bless you. Thank you.
Well, that was Zambian High Commissioner to South Africa, His Excellency Emmanuel Mwamba.